Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Everybody's shifting.
All right. Good evening. How you doing, John?
Okay.
Good.
Looks like you guys could use a little homework. Here's some images of downtown. You can look through if you want, think about what downtown means to you. Or you can just give them messages. But they're from like the chamber website, or there might be one that just really speaks to you, and all right.
Who's that man writing on?
Steve?
Oh, it's Tim. Jeez, Tim, I didn't recognize you, buddy. It was what,
So loud. Excuse me. Oh,
yeah, he's trying to get away from
right
me.
next
is what
to
he's trying
Linda.
to do.
Get on the other side of this. The left side.
What's that?
Oh, you had a question for him?
Oh, no, I thought he was having trouble. Oh, the screen got shifted or something. Other way. Your side back.
You can do quads in the park.
So it's how
So,
many
what, I can't read anything at the same time. So
Or she just looked through it and there was a picture that
what spoke to you?
spoke to you.
Oh, yes, this.
Julie, the presenter.
Who is she?
Julie Fisher.
Okay.
Engineers.
About time to come home, boy.
Yeah.
Thursday night.
I retired. So you guys got lots of good programs going, that's for sure.
You can come back.
They're busy.
There's a place for you. Some new faces.
Small project planning stage, you know, but gearing up to do some bigger projects. So,
All right.
although, Tuesdays for us is for a surprise big project.
Well, that's right. He's was right there with the timber guy. But that was just tragic. I hadn't seen that until about a week and a half ago.
trying to slow this beetle down, but it's, because they're so close to, there's so many. Like, if you were trying to build a park before that beetle, that's what you build.
What do you do to try to keep them?
One.
That's where you gotta cut it out.
That's all you can do, is there a spray and all for it, or?
That's about 50%.
Okay, it's time to call the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Board meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Scott Baker,
Here.
Stacy Coburn is absent, Bob Delaney,
Here.
John Frederick,
Here.
Gary Grossman,
Here.
Steve Kramer,
Here.
Darcy Lynn Curtis, Tim McLaughlin,
Present.
and Linda Miller.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded for approval of the agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm sorry, state requires us to take a roll call vote? I know.
Instead of the roll call that we had?
No, when you
Or-
vote,
Oh,
for a vote.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay,
Baker,
Aye.
Coburn, absent, Delaney,
Aye.
Frederick,
Yes.
Grossman,
Aye.
Kramer,
Aye.
Long Curtis,
Aye.
McLaughlin,
Aye.
and Miller.
aye.
Can't believe we have to do
Thank you.
Um,
Understood.
This is the only place we're doing it.
It's out of my hands.
Okay. So, the agenda is approved. Okay, next on the agenda is election of officers. And I'd like to nominate Scott Baker for the chair.
Second.
It's been nomination for, and seconded for Scott Baker to be the chair. All those in favor?
We have discussion.
Are there any other nominations?
Yes, I nominate Gary Grossman.
Is there a second?
I'll second for conversation.
Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. Any discussion?
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, may I? So, the reason that I nominated Gary Grossman is that he has many years of experience living here in the Dalles and has a good feel for the community. And, I do appreciate Scott Baker, and this is not against you. I was thinking to nominate Mr. Grossman first. I guess since we're there, you haven't been in this community for very long, and, I also think that Mr. Grossman has a lot of experience running a variety of meetings, and, we had some pretty contentious meetings last year, and he's a little bit, more neutral.
Any other discussion? Okay, so take a vote for each nomination, is that what we do?
I believe so.
Okay. Take a roll vote for Scott Baker.
Right. Baker,
I'll abstain.
Delaney,
Aye.
Frederick,
Yes.
Grossman,
Abstain.
Kramer,
Hey.
nay, Long Curtis,
Nay.
McLaughlin,
Nay.
and Miller.
Yay.
Tied.
Did you nay or yay?
Nay.
Okay. And the vote is?
3-3, 2 abstentions.
Madam Chair, can I have an opportunity to vote again?
Sure.
Okay, so nay.
Nay. Thank
That
you.
breaks it.
Okay. So the
Congratulations.
nomination call for Grossman?
Okay, Baker,
Aye.
Coburn is absent, Delaney,
Nay.
Frederick,
Nay.
Grossman,
Abstain?
Kramer,
Aye.
Lon Curtis,
Aye.
McLaughlin,
Aye.
and Miller.
Nay.
Okay, so it looks like Mr. Grossman is the new chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Grossman, you may. Oh, we
Yeah,
need,
that's what we meant, vice
we
chair.
need to nominate for the chair,
Vice chair.
Vice chair.
vice chair, vice chair.
I'd nominate Scott Baker.
I second that.
Easiest way to get that one done.
Move to close.
Is there a second?
I did.
Move to close.
second.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Move to close the nominations.
Is there a second to close the nominations?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close. All right. A roll call for vote?
Vice chair?
For vice chair.
Okay, Baker,
Abstain.
Coburn is absent, Delaney,
Aye.
Frederick,
Yes.
Grossman,
Yay, yes.
Kramer,
Aye.
Lon Curtis,
Aye.
McLaughlin,
Aye.
and Miller.
Aye. Okay. That takes care of the elections. And you may take over, Mr. Grossman.
Well, thank you.
Do you want to move to the chairs? Okay.
No, everybody can see me here. Next on the agenda is approval of minutes of the January 15th, 2019 minutes. I would entertain a motion to accept or amendments or changes.
Move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 15th. Roll call vote, I guess, for everything, huh?
Baker,
Abstain. I was absent.
Coburn is absent, Delaney,
Abstain, I was absent.
Frederick,
Abstain, I was absent.
Grossman,
I'll abstain, I was there, but I wasn't sitting on the committee.
Kramer,
Aye.
Lon Curtis,
Aye.
McLaughlin,
That was there. Yes, aye.
and Miller.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now is the time for, on our agenda for public comment. Do we have public comment from anybody? Chuck's agreeing with me, so do you have comment, Chuck?
I do.
You do? Well,
May I step up?
yep, you bet.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Chuck Gomez from the Granada Theater. I stood before you a couple years ago as
I need your address, Chuck.
221 East 2nd Street.
Thank you.
Yes. I stood before you several years ago, March 31st, 2017, and received the keys to the Granada Theater. What a wonderfully joyous day that was for us. In the next 4 months, with private funds, we were able to restore and open the Granada for a spectacular 3-day opening gala. We saw over 330 people the first day, a concert the second, and a children's show the third day. There was one woman that came up to me, was in her early 80s. She and her group had been to all 3 days of the performance. And this woman said to me, "Chuck, would you mind taking a moment and helping my mother in?" Her mother was 100 years old. And insisted on coming to that opening because she had been at the very first opening in 1929. At the end of the 3 days, I escorted her out, helped her to her car, and I did say to her, her name was Mildred. What a great name from that century. And I said, "Mildred, of the 3 days, 50 performers, over 15 acts, what did you enjoy the most out of all 3 of these days?" And she turned to me and she said, "Well, your wedding, of course, Chuck, as Deborah and I had been married. Opening night as the surprise grand finale." But to get to business of the Granada, we have been open last year for 24 shows, a total of 54 plus 100 guests came to the Granada. couple days ago, we had the concert Hee Haw with many of the original cast members. Some of you attended. At one point, factually, we said, how many have attended this concert from 25 miles away? Over 80% of the house had driven 25 miles, 50 miles, and finally 75 miles. And we had 25% of our house that had come over 75 miles, including several people from Guam. They were our furthest. We were asked when we took over the Granada to do our best to improve tourism into the community. Well, from our experience as a theater owners in Illinois, we realized that you cannot just depend on your local population. You have to, just like the businesses in town, have to reach out to a further distance. We have done that. We are now preparing for our Jazz Festival, which is being advertised nationally at this time. And coincidentally, and oddly enough, at our urban planning meeting just an hour or so ago, this photograph was brought up, as this is possibly the image that is to be projected for the growth and development of the downtown of the Dalles. Oddly enough, we have a stylized art poster for our Jazz Festival that nearly exactly represents that photograph, except we have taken things like the name of the town, a few of the key landmarks here in town, and stylized those to make them even larger and more predominant. We have signed up a variety of acts for our Jazz Festival and have reached out to every junior high and high school in the entire area and region to bring their jazz bands to participate with national artists on the Granada stage and possibly on a side stage on Washington Street. We are doing everything we can to bring people into town, and if you've attended one of our shows, you will walk away, hopefully, and I believe this sincerely, that you will walk away as if you had just attended a family function. Friendly, people you know, people you want to know. Our theater is a welcoming environment to each and every one. And that, I feel, is our downtown's best calling card. Treat everyone like friends and family, welcome them back. If there was an issue, deal with it happily and move forward, and we have done that. 5,400 plus guests, with approximately 80% coming from out of the community. And the last thing I'd like to address is the finances of the Granada Theater. We have met our goals within that first 4 months. We have continued to improve the theater, but it's been secondary improvements. And I will say proudly at this time that in 2 years, Deborah and myself have paid off the Granada to the Urban Council in full, ahead of schedule. Ahead of schedule. I cannot thank the community and the Urban Council enough for our opportunity to develop the Granada. And when people come from out of town to visit family that are still here, and the families drive around, what do they show off first? It's usually the Granada Theater. What a wonderful historic building it is. And I thank each and every one of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Chuck. That's exactly what we want to have happen with our urban renewal projects, and grand that you're entering into another expanded year. So
Thank you.
thank you for the good work you did on taking care of the outside of the building and the integrity of the building. Chuck and I had some discussion about that a couple of years ago, and Chuck has been a man of his word. And so we thank you for being part of our community. Do we have any other, John?
I'd just like to add to show that what you seen Saturday night with the caliber of the show you'd see in Branson, Missouri, which is the mecca of the Midwest for country music. Anybody that's ever been to Branson, I was sitting there Saturday night, and I used to drive from Chicago to Branson on a weekend to see a show of that caliber. Thank you, Chuck.
Did you give him a chance to pop out of the cornfield?
I had him sitting on a hay bale.
All right, do we have any other public comment to come before the group tonight? If not, we will move on to our presentation this evening, a community vision for downtown The Dalles. Julie Fisher, and we'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Excellent.
And if I could, before Ms. Fisher begins her presentation, just a few words. Chair, members of the board, good evening. Congratulations. The item we have before you is a planning effort that is just getting started for the downtown. This is a community visioning exercise for the downtown that will eventually perhaps lead to some modifications to our urban renewal plan and perhaps some new goals and objectives and perhaps some new projects to be listed. Before we start though, I did want to introduce Mr. Evan Manville, who's in the audience this evening, and he is from the State Department of Land Conservation and Development, and this planning process is being funded by the state through a grant, so I wanted to give a thank you for that, as always. And we had a couple of meetings this afternoon. We have a couple more scheduled for tomorrow. So with just that, I would like to let's get introduced Ms. Julie Fisher and also Colin McCarthy is here this evening. And they're going to kind of lead you through what we discussed this afternoon and kind of the big picture, and then hopefully get into a little Q&A for a few minutes.
Do I need to use this?
Yes.
That's fantastic.
You can move it though if you'd like. If you'd like
Okay.
to just hold it.
I'm actually going to speak only long enough to introduce Colin McCarthy. And we're gonna do a short presentation that we're actually doing with the groups that we're talking with, and then a short exercise with you and answer questions and go from there. I think the other thing I'd like to say is that I think Steve's goal is that this process we're starting on is part of a larger conversation. And so what we're doing in these first 2 days is starting to explore the questions with community leaders. But the goal really is to expand it to a public conversation. And at the end of the day, really have a vision that's visual, not just words, that's written and visual, and goals for the future of downtown, especially in relation to urban renewal projects. So that's the ultimate destination. And I'm going to introduce Colin MacArthur with Cameron McCarthy Architects. Colin and I work together regularly, and I'll let him fill you in on the rest.
Thanks, Julie. I'm Colin MacArthur with Cameron McCarthy Landscape Architecture and Planning and Urban Design. We're a Eugene-based firm that works with Julie's firm, Gito. We have a satellite office in Portland, excuse me. And then I don't usually go into a lot of personal detail during these presentations, but this project is of particular interest and importance to me because I grew up about 20 miles from here in Sherman County, and I have 35 plus years of memories of downtown Dallas and how it's changed. And I usually say that Dallas is my hometown because nobody knows where Wasco or Davis are on a map. But yeah, this is where we came for doctor's appointments and groceries and everything else all throughout my childhood. So I'm going to show you a collection of images that we have shown to 2 focus groups, and we'll show another 3 focus groups tomorrow. And these are just a collection of images of downtowns in communities all around Oregon and some in Southwest Washington. And they are organized into 3 categories: pedestrian and bicycle improvements, mixed-use development or new development types, and then placemaking places that are in downtowns. And these are not to suggest that these are anything or a particular image that the Dallas needs to aspire to. It's just our observations of what things are happening to improve other downtowns in our region, and specifically what interventions or amenities communities are thinking about and planning. So the first category is safety and biking, and this is an image from downtown Corvallis, 2nd Street, and our observation here is that there are bike racks and they're sheltered and they're relatively close to the public right-of-way on a 2-lane street. This is also Corvallis, and our observation here is that they have installed bulb outs on the corners, which lessen the distance that a pedestrian has to travel to cross the intersection. We've also got bike parking on one corner that's sheltered, and some landscaping with color on the other corner. So improvements in the right-of-way. This is a street similar to 2nd Street or 3rd Street in the Dalles, and that it's one-way, 2-lane with parallel parking on both sides. And they've taken over one parking spot and installed some bicycle parking where that parking spot was. This is Crown Falls. Leavenworth, Washington, which is a little more thematic downtown. We like this one. It's got bulb outs on the corners, lessen, again, the distance the pedestrian has to travel. It's got plantings, it's got bike racks, and it's got some decorative lamp posts. McMinnville, really strong tree canopy. The image is a little dark, but there is a covered shelter with a bench under it and some bike parking, and then an angled crossing that also has extensions, and it's a very short distance to travel. A little closer to home, this is Redmond. Redmond's seen a lot of investment in new infrastructure. Here we've got 2-lane road with curb extensions, planters, and then they've got some outdoor seating areas and traffic receptacles and activity happening on the street, and some newer street trees that are going to grow up and become big trees. Some of the development types that we're seeing around the state, and then a lot of these images are from Bend, because there's a lot of investment happening in Bend. This is a mixed-use building with retail on the ground floor and housing above it on the corner of Bond and Franklin in Bend. This is Bond Street itself. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this street. Lots of businesses, lots of retail, just a really good, healthy mix of uses that are occurring on the street. Some newer development in Bend. This is Wall in Arizona, new building with retail on the ground floor, housing above it. And then we're starting to see an outdoor seating area and a very large space for pedestrians on the intersection. Newer mixed-use development in Bend. And then I'll point out that we are seeing a square or some green space on the other side of that. This is Ashland, another condition similar to the Dalles, a 3-lane road. There's a restaurant with a patio and some outdoor seating on this side, and some older businesses, retail, apartments on the other side with a really healthy street canopy. And then more in the placemaking category, you know you're in Redmond because you see a sign that says you're in Redmond as you drive 100. So they put a gateway element in their downtown, as well as the street trees and the planters and other improvements. So placemaking, thinking about how can we create places in the downtown that people want to be, that support activities, that support a vibrant, active streetscape. This is Ashland, and I'll point out that what they've done is installed some planters. So the planters along the street, these provide some separation between the pedestrian and vehicle traffic, which enhances the perception, actually helps with safety. Also Ashland, this is a main street with retail and commercial. And on one side, they've got a public plaza, and it's in between two streets. It's a triangular parcel that has seating, planting, informational kiosk, wayfinding, and can also be used for special events during like the Shakespeare Festival. This is not a particularly great streetscape, just because of the large expanse of asphalt that you see in the picture. This is Klamath Falls. A couple things we do like about this image, though, is that we're seeing activity on one side where there's seating.
Baker City.
Oh, Baker City, sorry, not Klamath Falls. Baker City, but yeah, there's outdoor seating on one side, and then introduce some art on the other side, which help break up this rather large expanse of asphalt. This is Klamath Falls. So now we're seeing another 3-lane road with outdoor seating, healthy street trees, some planters, and then some other decorative light posts. And then this is a similar image to what I showed you earlier with Leavenworth. It shows how a street can be converted to a festival or an event, and looks like they're having an old car show that's going on in this picture. And finally, an image of Minville. Your development in Minville, it's retail and housing above it. I think it's 6 stories, and there's a very large pedestrian area with some healthy, strong street canopy. And then finally, a public square in Bend in the old mill district that has a water feature, seating, benches, plantings, and then a large paved area that can be used for other events. So when we try to distill this all down and think about what are the ingredients or the elements that make up a successful, vibrant, healthy downtown, this list is the starting point. And what we see are active streetscapes. There's more happening on the street than just parking. There's seating areas, there's outdoor dining, there's green space, and there's landscaping. And all of that is drawing people to want to be outside and not just traveling from one place to the other. There's public gathering spaces. There's spaces where you can have festivals, events, other types of small activities or food carts. There's a critical mass of businesses. This is something that we think that Dallas already has. There's a strong mix of businesses. We've seen a number of new businesses come into downtown over the last 10 years. That mass is already there. Mixed uses. This also contributes to a vibrant downtown, having not just one-story retail or commercial, but multi-story that is commercial, retail, restaurants, other types of dining, perhaps with housing above it. And then on that note, a number of retail and dining options. Housing options. We want people living downtown and accessing the services downtown and using the restaurants and the shops. And we're seeing townhomes and condos and apartments and other types of hotels and motels and short-term lodging going into downtowns and helping contribute to that fabric. Community and social organizations. McEd is downtown. The Park District is not too far from downtown. City Hall, Wasco County, and then things like the Art Museum and other public services. Arts and entertainment. Those are happening in these public spaces and are happening in the downtown. Sometimes on the streetscapes. Landmarks. Dallas has recognizable landmarks. I think of St. Peter's, the church, the Elks Lodge, regionally the dam, the Columbia Gorge Discovery Center, and then character architecture, which is something that we do think that Dallas has going for it in a number of historic buildings and historic structures that have been preserved and are in the downtown area. In fact, walking by, we saw one today on a corner that was being, the facade was being exposed, and they're taking off the awnings and showing the original brick facade that was already there. So there are some really strong building blocks already in the downtown, and our process is really about figuring out what the assets are, what the committee already has to work with, and then as Julie, as you talked about, what does the community want, and how do we articulate that into a vision. So we've had two focus groups already today, and I think Julie's gonna summarize a little bit of what we heard from our focus groups earlier today.
Yeah, we talked to businesses, and then we talked to folks in the art and entertainment world. Here we go. So, you know, it was like diverse, and then there were definitely some key themes. I think this idea of a town square came up, like public spaces downtown where people feel safe and there's some shelter, and a family could go where they don't feel like their kid is gonna run in the middle of the street in a second. So we heard that repeatedly. The idea of walking downtown and feeling safe and being in some more greenery, we definitely heard that. We had some conversation about one way and two way, and then we decided not to talk about that too much. So we talked about more shopability and services downtown, and there was an interesting discussion around, well, we always need more clothing stores, and we always need more shoes. And then there was an interesting conversation about, you know, how much can the community support that? Will it? Can it? But overall, an optimistic view of that sense of growing in terms of retail services, and a sense of that people drive really quickly through downtown, and how can traffic be slowed to feel safer if you're walking or biking. Definitely several comments around new housing and people living downtown. I think Colin did a great job describing the landscape, and it's like, well, the thing that's happening is people. And so what are people doing in that landscape, and how does that, how is it that the people that create vibrancy? Someone said, you know, I went downtown with my family, but it just felt like there was nobody there. And so that sense of vibrancy is not just about something being green or safe, it's that there are other people doing what you're doing downtown as well. And I think that's similar, shopability, some diversity, recognizing the Native American history, existing presence, the Latino community, and that sense of supporting future micro businesses. So that kind of, that sense of, let's see if there's anything else. Destination to Eastern Oregon Gateway. That was an interesting comment by somebody. But overall, oh yeah, and this was interesting. Well, downtown, you know, it's about music, it's about families, it's about brew pubs, but somebody else says, well, it's about the working people of this area, and it serves an 80-mile radius. So looking at both those is important. And people recognized just the cultural aspects of what downtown represents. So that's a little bit what we talked about. I'm curious what you have to say. And if there's one question I would ask in the short time I have is, what would you like to see downtown? And what would you like to see the identity of downtown? If we step away with, you know, key words, imagery, goals for the future of downtown, where do you think it's going? I mean, I would love to hear from you, because it's my only chance. Anybody want to start?
I'll start.
Excellent.
I grew up here in the late 50s, 60s, early 70s. And the downtown was the hub because there was no west side. And that's what I know the Dalles to be, and that's what I'd like to see back again.
And so when you say back again, what is it that you want to see? Like, I walk downtown, I have not been to the downtown a lot. I'm like, yeah, this is doing all right. This is coming along.
there was retail,
More retail.
more retail.
Mhm.
And basically, that's what it was. There was some eating establishments,
Mhm.
not high-end, cafe.
And you use that word, the hub. Was that what?
Well, because there was, it was a hub because there was no place else.
That was it.
That was it.
Do you remember your favorite place? Where you like to go downtown?
Not really. I mean, it was the whole downtown.
It was the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I mean, there was 2 or 3 drugstores that they were more than drugstores. They were gift shops. They were actually a little more than a drugstore.
So serving the people that are working in the area, serving the community,
Yes,
services,
yes.
retail. Other thoughts? Is that what you guys would, yes?
How, is there any discussion on the socioeconomics? You know, since the late 80s, the division between the haves and have-nots, not only here but across the country, has grown. I'm in the property management field. Many of the people in our community can't afford to live here, they can't afford the rents. As taxes continue to go up, the cost of everything goes up, and not having those good paying manufacturing jobs, retail jobs aren't normally high paying jobs.
Right.
So my concern would be how do you grow this and have jobs that the people can afford to live here and not be reliant on people
Right.
coming from the outside?
I mean, I'm gonna take a stab at this, but I also wouldn't mind Steve taking a stab at it. I mean, I would venture to say there's a potential, because I've read the economic and opportunity analysis, and that sense of attracting jobs through other sources, the high-tech industry or other industries that are family wage jobs, then they're moving here for those jobs, and then the downtown is serving them. So the downtown is not serving itself, it's,
So are we in
Serving
fact
the community.
pushing the lower out? I've seen this in other communities where the developers come in and build these big homes, and pretty soon people can't afford to live in the community and they're forced out someplace else. And, you know, the Dells is a lot of the homeless, lower income, come here because we're really the last, they can't afford to live for a little anymore.
so you'd like to see a downtown that serves
The entire,
all of the community members. And when you say everyone, what would the services, what would it be that downtown was doing for the whole community? It's having rents that are affordable,
rents that are affordable, having jobs that you can live off of. And like I said, retail jobs, very, very, very hard to live a single family. The family structure in our country has been destroyed.
and when you say family wage jobs, what kind of things downtown would you like to see that would provide that?
That's the question.
Of the century.
That's the question, because people talk about bringing retail down. Typically, retail jobs are not family living wage jobs.
So that's an ongoing.
So there's a bigger conversation here other than just what we're talking about.
Right.
There's a bigger picture, and it's going on all across the country.
Definitely. Is there anything you want to add to that?
If I could, we're currently working on economic opportunities analysis. And that's more of those type of jobs, manufacturing jobs, commercial, industrial, land in the community, demand, supply, and where we fit in the region. The city's actually kind of a net importer of jobs. I think we've got about 4,000 plus or minus residents that live and work in the community. We've got about 3,000 plus or minus residents that work outside of the community, and about 3,500 people that live outside of the community and commute into town. So we're looking at that on a much broader perspective, and we'll report out to this board as that study progresses. So, you know, typically for the downtown, you see retail, you see service jobs. So, you know, retail is retail, and downtown has a very important position for that. One of the items that we have been talking about is looking and identifying various districts or sub-districts within the downtown area, where perhaps one area can focus on retail, another arts and entertainment, cultural type facilities, like the art center, the theater. We have the government centers. We have 3rd Street has kind of become a professional office corridor, professional, you know, banks and some of the offices. And then the easterly end of downtown, that's where we have more. This is where one of the images I think in the packet was the hands, you know, making things. Dallas Iron Works, you know, we have some of the auto body and auto mechanic pieces. So we're thinking that area kind of morph into this area that makes things, you know, more manufacturing. So perhaps that could be the area we have some of those higher paying jobs rather than concentrating on the retail street. Again, it's, we'll be bringing, you know, we'll report out to this board in the next few months on this other economic opportunities analysis. I think that'll answer some of your questions.
Other thoughts on downtown, what you'd like to see in the future? Because, you know, part of it is like putting it out there, and then that's the first step. That's all you do.
So for me, it's,
Oh, sorry, Darcy.
sorry, I keep looking at Linda, she's not here.
That's,
So for me, it would be making our downtown very beautiful. Obviously, we live in a place where outdoor activities are important, so continuing to nurture our trees and our plants. But then also making it a place where people want to hang out for a long time. So if they want to walk store to store, that way more retailers are being supported, because right now people drive somewhere and they shop there, and then they maybe drive somewhere else, or maybe they're tired and they just go home. So I would like to see them, you know, hanging out downtown, walking store to store that maybe they wouldn't normally go in, but the window catches their eye, grab something to eat because it's convenient. And then there's all kinds of places that we have, like the Lewis and Clark Park, where they can go for activities and just have it be an area where people plan to go and have an adventure, have some family time.
And when you go to store, what gets you to walk? I mean, that's something that we had a little bit of a conversation in one of the sessions. Like, what does it take for you to, like, look and walk?
Well,
something going on down the street.
So, activity, definitely. Anything else?
Well, for me, when I travel, it's the character architecture, and then as you walk, that each store has its own unique thing, and that it's clean and friendly, and so then you want to just keep walking to see what else is in that area, and it feels small. You don't feel like you're looking way down before you see something else, because there's things as you're going, so you feel like a really intimate area, and pretty soon you've walked 3 or 4 blocks without really realizing it.
Yeah, we heard that from everyone, and we also, you know, we heard a little bit of the streetscape stuff, like, well, in the summer, it's really hot. You know, it's hard to walk that far. So it really is a combination of different things that make it feel good to do that. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Tim?
We are bound by urban growth boundary and by scenic areas. So residency and housing, I would like to see a city where more downtown living is available, and that's limited right now. So an expansion of that would be great. Along with that, preservation of historic landmarks, but allowing for modernization, because what we have, the St. Peter's landmark, with the Elks building and with some of the improvements that are coming. And, you know, it's a very vital city and it's growing and there's great things happening. We just, with planning, we do our best, we make our best strides forward when we plan effectively. And so visioning is a part of that. And I would like to see a community that meets the needs of our citizens, where they can come. Right now I see the Hebring, Victor Johnson's house. He's taking something old, making it new, and changing it to make it vital. And if we can do more of taking some of the places that we do have and transforming them into something that's marketable and usable and something that's interesting, that's what I would like to see. A gathering place for, right now, for young people, for anyone that's in their 20s. There was a time when we had nightclubs and places for people to gather. I don't think we really have anything like that that supports that nightlife that I would like to see the downtown. And maybe there's some possibilities in the future. I see some of the new developers in our community here tonight. So I'm just, recreation possibilities. The recreation probably for many people growing up, and I was included, was the recreation with the restaurant, with the bowling alley, it was a hub of the community. And when that closed, we lost that. So any activity that provides family-based activity, I'm highly encouraged of that for our downtown. Absolutely.
Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first I want to thank the state for their support for this project, because I think it's hugely important. I feel overwhelmingly positive about the direction that the Dalles is going, and I feel that it has incredible staff and elected people in its local government, and its businesses, and its civic organizations, but we feel a little scattered. I see all this good work, but pulling in slightly different directions, and I think that if we could get a common vision and pull together, it would really make some positive change. As far as a vision for downtown, you know, I'd love to see housing over retail, which is one of the things that you mentioned. I think that we have opportunities throughout our historic buildings to do that, and have invested in that already and should continue to invest in that. An emphasis on placemaking, specifically around slowing down traffic through the downtown. I think that City Park and Lewis and Clark Park could be kind of twin acres, with Lewis and Clark as more event space, City Park serving farmers markets and night markets and having a playground. And then we could expand on that to have public places on the east and west end of town, so we've sort of made a cross where you can walk through, and I'd like to really focus on making those places with an eye towards making it welcome for people ages 8 to 80, right? So that we've got something for everybody in that sort of placemaking, and just that way we can bring the community together.
Bob, any comments?
I think, in seeing this in the direction again, thank you for the state kind of leading us down this and all the work to go in to make this, the meeting over the next 2 days happen, to kind of bring a neutral or an outside party to try to help put us in the right direction. As I was looking and thinking of this, and I've been here since 1983, I can't say I grew up, maybe I'm matured here. The idea, when you mentioned the word townscape or town square, that intrigued me, and I think the concept of the retail housing combination with the multiple story buildings we already have in existence here, you know, it seems to be proven over and over at the state and various other locations that this seems to be a working concept. One, the other, just, I used to get caught in the trap myself, as downtown the Dalles was 2nd and 3rd Street, and it's not. It's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 4th. And from wherever you wanna say St. Peter's or the intersection of Trevitt and Sixth Place, all the way down to the Sunshine Mill, that's a tremendous, you know, much larger area than just Second and Third Street, because I can't imagine as these visions come in and get some direction and moving forward that, as Tim mentioned with, in particular with the scenic area, the railroad and Highway 30, you know, dealing with ODOT and other things, you know, that's why you have to conceptualize First through Fourth Street, so it needs to be all inclusive of everything, but the idea of a place like to come where people in the community as a community support site, but not necessarily a workforce hub, makes more sense.
So community support versus.
It's a support place for members, like you mentioned, the originally, this necessarily isn't gonna be the main work environment. You're not gonna get manufacturing jobs, you're not gonna get high paying, that, you know, that's not the purpose of this small area. It's about the livability when we try to get those jobs in the other outside areas, get the manufacturers, get the tech firms, get the higher paying family wage jobs, that we can support those employees and their families in the community, such as Cirrhosis Park is a similar type situation. And I think that's the direction we need to go.
Steve, you kind of represent those that are come in from the outside, and you're here all the time, so what do you think?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Grossman. I think that the committee has captured most of the comments that we've had over the last 6 years that I've been involved with this organization. And my thought on this is I want to hear from the citizens. I want to hear what they have to say. And so I'll be interested to see, as you progress through your meetings, what kind of public involvement we do have, so that the constituents have an opportunity to chime in on this. So that's kind of where I stand on this at this time.
Good, well, this has certainly been some of the most dynamic comments I've heard on the subject, and we've been hearing about it I've been hearing about it since 2006. And so this is a wonderful and marvelous step. I think this community is really gearing up to go on a big roll. I think Mayor Lawrence teed up the ball, and Mayor Rich will continue on, and I'm just excited. You guys, I love the image that Darcy was kind of presenting of walking down the street, and the pictures you guys presented. If we could get that kind of feel to our community, it'd be just tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I've learned from years of working on planning projects is it really is the public outreach and the public energy and the vision that comes from that involvement that can create outcome much more than, you know, finding some pile of money in some corner. Like, that can always once you have that energy behind you and that common vision, you know, it happens, and you can see how far you've come already. It is a pretty amazing, it's a really cool place. I commend you for all the historic buildings that are here. That is just, I grew up in Iowa, and I really, really miss my hometown, and it kind of feels like the Dells a little bit downtown. So thank you so much for preserving just the beauty that you have, and the rest of this stuff will just fall into place. So
You're just on the right side of the mountains.
I've noticed. So thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So anything else for the presentation?
If I may,
Yes.
Chair, just want to echo the comments from the board this evening, and just this working title of this study, it's a community's vision for downtown. This is something that we definitely are reaching out, these various focus groups, and also much larger, broader public participation as the study progresses. So this is going to be the community's vision. One thing with vision statements, sometimes sometimes they're a little high on that ladder, and what we need to do is bring that down to reality and come back before this board and the city council on how we implement this vision. And we'll talk a little bit about that next month during our budget session on our proposal for some further studies going into the new year, budget new year for the board, as well as the city council. I mentioned our urban renewal plan, dates from 1990. It's been amended, I think, 15 times now, this last one with the Mill Creek Trail for the funding. And a number of those projects that are listed in that have been accomplished already, the streetscape projects. And so we want to come back with perhaps a list of projects that would see us forward for the next 20 years, in that's the direction that the agency wants to go. As part of this effort, we also would like to identify certain properties, certain blocks in the downtown that could be identified as opportunity areas, opportunities for redevelopment. And a third component is the financial aspect. If you remember, one of our consultants, Elaine Howard, came before this board, I think last year, gave a presentation on urban renewal agencies throughout the state. We've used her over the years to run various financial analysis of the district and the plan itself. And so we want to identify these certain properties or blocks for potential redevelopment, and then bring in that financial aspect to be able to perform an analysis that if these properties were to redevelop under certain parameters, whether they're mixed use or retail or other types of uses, what could be the income that could be generated from those properties, various tax revenues. And we want to use that then to take a look at the financial condition of the agency itself, and what our projected revenues would be, and what our indebtedness would be for our bonding capacity, and then bring that question before the board, perhaps the city council as well. With our 2009 bond issue, we still have proceeds from that we have lined up to do certain projects, and perhaps an opportunity then to move forward with a new bond issue based on some of these new studies that we're doing, and to have some funds available for investment in public infrastructure as well as assisting in redevelopment. So that's where we're going to go. And again, we'll come back before you after budget committee meetings this next month and go through the budget process. A little more information.
Anybody want to share any images that you were looking at?
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have these?
Oh, you want these back?
Oh, well, I can do that, but I need them for tomorrow.
I thought we'd deal with somebody.
Yeah, I know.
Well, thanks, Steve. I think our community development department is very progressive these days in moving ahead and getting together the type of information that's really needed to see this community move ahead. And so that is really wonderful. Moving on our agenda, we have action item A, which is First Street Riverfront Connection Project, status update, and authorization to proceed with the next phase of the project. I presume that's in your court, Steve.
I drew the short straw.
Lucky you.
Can someone hit the lights, just mix it in, not all of them. Try, there you go, better.
I have one of our other consultant teams from KPFF here this evening, Kurt. Vendor.
Oh, come on, Steve. It's Kurt Van Duzen with KPFF.
That's right, Kurt Van Duzen. I've been talking all day, I'm sorry. So, talk about rubber meeting the road here, in this case, bike lanes, on-street parking perhaps, sidewalks, etc. In your staff report, I'll give you kind of a brief history of this project. And then with the new technical memos from KPFF, go into a little more detail This project has been with the city for 10+ years. We have earmarked federal funds. We started this. We have a contract with ODOT to manage those monies. And KPFF has been the project engineers on this since the beginning. They've also done other work for the agency over the years. Various engineering projects, the commercial cruise dock, things like that. So they have been around for quite some time. This project predates me by a decade since I've been at the city. From my understanding, the funds were earmarked. This is in 2008 timeframe, 2006 or 7, I guess 2006 or 7. At that time, this is not grant funds, they're earmarked, so they're earmarked for this particular project. It's administered through ODOT. And so, Kurt's firm has been at the city since the very beginning on this. It's what started out as a fairly simple streetscape project on First Street from Union to Laughlin. Period sidewalks, street furniture, lighting, decorative sidewalk crossings, bike lane, on-street parking were allowed, and refinishing First Street. It's my understanding that shortly after that, the project began to morph a little bit, began to change. Project scope expanded. So at one time, it included a sunken plaza at
Washington Street.
Washington Street. It included an undercrossing for bicyclists and pedestrians, undercrossing of I-84 and the UP Railroad to then connect with the Riverfront Trail. Very ambitious plans. There was also the inclusion of a parking structure. It's kind of a side project on where the surface parking lots are now. And so the costs continue to expand, And came back before the agency board, which at that time was also the city council. There was a decision in 2015 that the costs have kind of gotten out of hand in the project description. The city had also received some state transportation improvement funds, STIP funding to assist with this. I believe those funds were, I think about 1.3 million, about 1.3 million to assist with this new expanded project. Construction projects like this, they get included in the state transportation plan. It goes through the legislature, it gets signed, you get funding. So once it gets in that program, it's in there, but you ought to have certain deadlines, certain time limit, and so on to proceed. So then in 2015, the city council agency board kind of put a hold on the project. Costs were getting out of hand. There was still a local match. We were just had a shortfall, $1 million+. At that time, the decision was made to return those funds back to the state for $1.3 million. And then in 2016, I guess beginning early in the year, with the change in staff, the project was just put on hold. And then was formally notified towards the end of 2016. Kind of things were just kind of put a hold on the project. Staff was contacted in 2017 by the ODOT staff, wanting to know, are you going forward with the city project or not? And so I started to do a little more research into this, and there's lots and lots of files on this, a lot of construction documents, etc. When KPFF was notified to cease work on that, the construction plans, were at the 95% completion level. So to stop a major project at that level of detail on those plans is somewhat unusual. get to that point, and you're almost at the point where you've got to start working on the bid package and whether you want to bid for the project. So the project was put on hold. So after being contacted by ODOT in 2017 and getting a understanding of the project, a couple of things kind of jumped out at me. That one, the project had been going on for a number of years. The original cost estimates were now somewhat stale. And so in order to make the decision for the board and the council to move forward on the project, a couple of things had to happen. One, we needed to amend the contract with ODOT. We needed to extend the length of time for construction to get this project done. So that got extended to 2021. We also needed to, I wanted to amend the project description. Since beginning in 2017, the Parks District had started to have some serious discussions on the Mill Creek Trail plan. And there seemed to be an opportunity, the way the current boundaries are for our project, we ended at Union Street. And with the Mill Creek Trail coming through Thompson Park, it was ending there on West Second Park. And there seemed to be an opportunity to perhaps if we could connect these two, we could have this continuous off-street bikeway, bike path, pedestrian path along Mill Creek, come down to the First Street area, and then go to Union Street down to the Riverfront Trail. So there was an opportunity to create this really great feature, this off-street bike path. So we asked to amend the project boundaries from Union Street westerly, some intersection near Thompson Park, and then to also revisit the easterly boundaries where they currently end at Laughlin Street and First Street, and extend that to Madison to see another couple of blocks what we could do in that area. And then we also had to amend the work that KPFF was doing for the ODOT contract, and bringing his cost estimates updated. So we extended the project deadline. We eliminated the Washington Street Plaza and the undercrossing. We extended the boundaries on the west to Thompson Park, on the east to Madison Street, and then updated the cost estimates for KPFF. So that was done through an amendment through ODOT. I believe you have a copy of that amendment in your packet. So we've asked Kurt to come here this evening to kind of explain the table that was in the memo on the construction costs and a couple of options going forward. We have been in contact with UP Railroad about the possible use of the right-of-way from Union Street westerly to some point near Thompson. My initial conversations with UP were encouraging, and that's what I based the agenda report on. So if you were to look on, I guess that's page 4 of the report, where I bold and underlined, please disregard everything written above where it says that UP is encouraging the city to move forward with the use of the right-of-way. Received communication from UP after, right before the report was published, that they were disinclined to allow the use of their right-of-way in this bicycle and pedestrian path. And we're going to pursue those conversations with UP, but that will not affect the overall project itself from the Union Street easterly. So we can continue to work with that. But I did want to provide you with how our thought process was on what we looked at for 2 alternatives for connecting the First Street, Union Street, all the way to Thompson Park, and how to look at some on-street alternatives for this bike lanes. So what we'd like to, the purpose of the meeting tonight is to get a couple of actions out of the board. One would be, after we look at extending the First Street improvements easterly from Laughlin to Madison, we've determined that because of some right-of-way constraints, we call them pinch points or choke points, we really aren't able to provide for a sidewalk the full width, travel lane, on-street parking, and bike lane. There's just a couple of buildings down there that choke off the right-of-way. So staff's position is for the cost involved for extending that, it's really not worth it as far as what the public benefit would be. And so we're recommending that we not extend the formal improvements east from Laughlin to Madison. We continue to work with UP Railroad on that, and then also to go into the next phase, which would be continuing to work with KPFF and finalizing the construction documents and then going to the right-of-way phase. As I said, this is federal funds for this project. We've got it's almost 11% local match. So it's federal funds, we have to come up with 11%. We also have, I mentioned earlier, we've got proceeds from the 2009 bond issue. We've set aside for this project. And I've got some cost estimates in here to show you that we do have the funds available to continue with this project.
Is there a termination date on that federal grant?
It's being extended to January 31st, 2021 for this latest amendment. If we get the project underway and show progress, we could request an additional extension of time. So I do have a couple of slides. I'm going to try to do this behind me here. And so this is just the downtown area, the First Street. This is the Thompson Park area right off the screen. And the UP section on 2nd Street. This is Union, and then it goes down here to Madison. This was the potential extension that we included in our request to amend the contract. It just shows this dash line with that off-street, with the gate on the UP. And then here's a couple of photos of what this looks like now. So presently this area, here's the tracks over here. This is the property line with the post office. Presently it's being used as a kind of informal driveway, access road. I know it's also used as parking all through here. So it's already being used in public use. In its current state, it's potential safety. It's a potential safety hazard. So our proposal with these plans would be to have this bikeway fenced off. So it would be secure and would be keep the bicyclists and pedestrians out of this area for the tracks. They do have certain safety setbacks. We've also included room for potential third rail. It's something that UP may want to consider sometime. So this is the Union Street crossing right here. Regardless, if we are able to extend the bikeway on the UP, there's going to have to be some enhanced safety measures here at this intersection, and that would be UP's responsibility. This may be something that Kurt may want to get up and talk about. This shows the red line. The alternative that we looked at was along the UP right away, and then this blue line would be on-street bike lanes. In order to link up with the Mill Creek Trail, which may result in the loss of on-street parking with the bike lanes, and that may or may not be a positive benefit. And then this is, again, just shows the, you have copies of this in your packet that shows that First Street improvement through here. This was the area of the sunken plaza, I believe it was, and the undercrossing, and so, a lot of work went into that. Essentially, we won't be able to use that work for those plans. And then this was the area, this is, I believe, Laughlin here down to Madison, so you get a couple of these areas, these choke points I was talking about, and we would have to reroute the bike lanes off of First Street anyway, so you'd have a bike lane going in one direction would be on First Street, or a shared lane of traffic, the auto traffic, and then going the other direction would be separate. So again, it was complicated, and our recommendation is not to show any improvements for that area. So this is one of the cost tables, and there's a more complicated one in the packet. So at this time, I would like to introduce Kurt, if you would get up, you want to start talking?
Sure. So let's see, what to say. So there is a much more detailed estimate in the back of our technical memorandum that actually tells the story probably a little bit better than this does. Our estimate when this thing went on the shelf back in 2015, full estimate was around $6.1 million. That included basically construction of the undercrossing at Washington Street as well as the sunken plaza, and also included reconstruction of the southerly half of Washington Street, basically from the alley back to Second. So the next column was essentially that same project with the tunnel removed. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Can you do that? Oh man, probably not. Let me talk through this real quick. So essentially, this was trying to get that estimate brought back down to basically what it would have been without the tunnel, without the sunken plaza. Next, we moved over to essentially looking at the base project brought up to date. So basically, meaning we re-looked at quantities, we re-looked at unit prices based on today's prices, and we also brought in some additional enhancements for pedestrian crossings of the railroad at Union as well. So the price down at the bottom of that one with the 3.2 includes that additional enhancement plus updating estimate. While we were working through this, we were also asked to include basically the replacement of the water line within First Street as part of this project, which was not included in the original work. So that is going to be the fourth column over. That's looking at like about a $325,000 addition. And then we looked at, next column is essentially looking at the expanded project limits. The first column being essentially the easterly expansion from Laughlin down to Madison. As Steve said, that section definitely has some complications to it as far as just not having adequate space to fully fit what we were trying to get to. That Steve identified is essentially a 12-foot wide pathway. This assumes that basically we would be able to get it through on the railroad property. Also includes fencing and what have you, so that's running right around $500,000 for that work itself. Anything else on the estimated piece at this point?
Maybe explain some of the contingencies.
Oh, yeah, the one thing you'll see at the bottom is that basically, you know, we actually, by the time we had hit the 95% estimate, we continually actually decrease the contingencies that we put in for our estimates as you get deeper into design. So you'll see that basically our 95% estimate contingency was down to 10%. As we step back and start doing redesign, you know, some of that new work, that contingency is actually escalated. Because again, we don't have we do have some unknowns as we modify those designs. We do also include some additional costs for redesign efforts. As Steve said, you know, basically we do have a pretty significant portion of the work that we did back in 2015, 2016 will end up having to be redone because of the fact that number one, the tunnel is now being pulled out of the project, the sunken plaza is gone, plus there were a fair number of signs at that point that were being done to coordinate with the proposed hotel and proposed parking lot that my understanding are both basically gone at this point. So there's some adjustments that would need to be made there as well. I will say that this also includes an estimated construction, admin, and engineering cost that frankly was basically our best guess at this point. That could likely be reduced depending on how much of the work the city actually chose to do in-house.
And on page 9 of the packet, that's page 9 out of 31, at the bottom of the page it says board alternatives. So taken various cost tables and hopefully made it a little simpler here, of funding and cost estimates. So available funding estimates, we have approximately 1.2 million left on our federal funds, 1,267,000. From the 2008 bond, there's approximately 3.6 million, which gives us a total of just over 4.8 million available. Project cost estimates, and this is just the base project from Union to Laughlin, is about $3.2 million on the table. If you add the water main replacement on First Street, which is another 325,000, it comes up to just over 3.5 million. It may be possible to have other funds available for that water main replacement. The Public Works Department, I'm not really sure what's available as far as SDCs, but there could be possible that there's some other funding sources. But I think the worst case is you'd want to look at the 3.5 million to complete the project, the base project. And then if you subtract out the remaining federal funds of just over 1.2 million, then you're left at approximately 2.3 million of the local funds would be required, plus that 11% match of the federal funds. So, at this point, I think there is funding available. That all depends on what other obligations the agency may want to pursue. There's a request for financial participation for development. As I mentioned earlier, with the segment west of Union Street still in doubt, our recommendation at this time would be to continue to hold discussions with UP, work with our consultant team in order to try to come up with some alternatives for that segment, but continue at this point with the next phase for that Union to Laughlin segment. Moving forward with preparation of plans and specs and any right-of-way that's needed for that. During the previous presentation, I mentioned about moving forward with the financial, our urban renewal consultant Elaine Howard and her team, and doing a financial analysis of the district as far as what our maximum indebtedness is, if there's any excess bonding capacity, and that could also be a potential source of funds. One thing that we want to do is to bring forward this project to the board, because it has been with the city for quite some time now. And so we were successful in getting our contract with ODOT amended last year. We move forward and extend that date. One major caveat with this is if the city agency decide not to move forward with this project, then in all likelihood, we will be responsible for those federal funds that have been spent to date, which approximately 400,000. And I would anticipate we would enter into discussions with the appropriate parties, and perhaps that could be negotiated downward, but that figure is out there. In this presentation, we'll be at City Council on Monday night as well.
Questions or discussion?
I have discussion. So the report was received February 14th from KPFF, and we just got the memo today with this 31-page packet here, not even prior to the meeting where we could read it. I don't see how we can take action on something we haven't even had a chance to review, and it even calls it a technical memorandum. It's not easy information.
And that was, if I may, board member, that was a requirement for ODOT that we needed to meet certain deadlines for this, to get that technical memo as part of the contract. The packet was distributed last week electronically.
Yes.
And then we also provided hard copies.
Did everybody else receive the packet, other than Darcy?
I printed it out.
We need to check and see why Darcy didn't get a packet.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, is also, since it will be on the city council agenda for next week, the same packet was distributed to city council as well this week.
I haven't picked up my city council packet, and the mayor and I are gonna be in Washington DC for the community outreach team, so neither one of us will be there for that presentation or vote.
Some discussion.
Yes.
So, I'm really happy that the ODOT extended the project boundaries, I like options, even if we choose not to do them, at least now we have the option, I think that's fantastic. All projects, including trail projects, are expensive. I love that we could get a $570,000 project done for $55,000 of local money. I think that's great. And, I don't think that's our only source of funding. I have to say, faced with the prospect of giving back $400,000, I feel a little pot committed at this point, and I wonder if we can be strategic about scaling this project so that we can get the maximum advantage of that federal match without perhaps overspending an easterly expansion where, like, I drew the same conclusion that we didn't get a lot of benefit out of that easterly expansion is from a bike and pedestrian standpoint as we do from the westerly expansion, which I feel gives us a lot of connectivity both for the cruise dock, Riverfront Trail, Lewis and Clark, and downtown, and leads to what will soon be a beautiful Mill Creek Greenway through Thompson Park. So knowing that there's an April deadline for a state grant opportunity for recreational trails, that just requires a letter of intent due by April with a full grant application due in June. I'd like the board to think about directing staff to write that letter of intent so that that's on one track, if you will, while we continue discussions with Union Pacific. If those fail, we've lost nothing by spending a little staff time on that letter. And I think hopefully we would know before we invest a lot of staff time into a grant application.
That makes good sense. What about,
Oh, excuse me, Tim, Bob's next.
Just because I'm new to this agency and understanding, on page 9 of the available funding estimate, the 2008 FFCO bond proceeds, are those agency funds and the agency bonds that were issued?
That was a joint city agency bond, that's the agency's portion.
That's the 3.6 is the agency
Yes.
portion outside of any other.
FFC is full faith and credit obligation.
Okay, and then, so amount of the, if we had to turn back the, some dispersed money, part of that would come out of the agency or all of it, or it would be a combination? I understand between the switch when the city wasn't the agency and then, excuse me, and then this became its own entity. I understand there was some
The
transition.
contract is between the city and ODOT.
Okay.
So there would need to be some discussion between council and the agency board.
Tim, then John?
I was just looking at why UP is objecting. What was the basis for that? Right away, they stated, but, and I'm sure safety would be the other.
Well, I put in quotes directly from the correspondence, due to its proximity and overlap of UP property.
Okay, that doesn't,
And I have not yet had a response to my follow-up.
mile is close to proximity, it depends, it's relative. So I think they need to be more specific. Is there another alternative? Can an overpass be built, a footpath to go over the railroad track?
Well, board member, this would run parallel This
I
proposed
know
bike
that.
would run parallel to the tracks.
So you wouldn't pass over to go to the Lewis and Clark Park?
It's the way it's presently conceived, it would be either on-street or with those shared sidewalks there at Union and First Streets.
Oh,
That's not the part of our objective.
okay, so that clarifies that. Thank you.
So,
John, then Linda?
That was gonna be my next question, is taking out, going under, what about a walkway over the top, a raft walkway over the tracks? That was what Tim had mentioned.
But apparently that's not one of the points.
Kurt may have an answer.
Just, I was gonna say, just real quick, is when we were looking at shelving the project back in 2015, we did look at another option of potentially doing an overcrossing at Washington versus doing the undercrossing. And frankly, at that time, that was also deemed to still be, I can't remember what the numbers were, but it was still a significant cost. And frankly, there was a lot of thought that, frankly, it would not get used very much. I mean, people basically having to walk up the stairs, across and then back down. Frankly, we didn't believe that you would see an awful lot of traffic using it. And if you wanted to do ADA accessibility, you'd actually have to do elevator towers.
So I believe we had an elevator in there
Yeah.
when that cost got away from us.
I was thinking more of a.
Oh, we looked at that. Yeah, we looked at a long ramp system as well to try to get the elevation. And that actually started driving costs up pretty high.
And the other question I had, in the name of safety, as close as those tracks are to First Street, because I park back there, is there any talk about putting some kind of safety barrier or wall?
Yeah, fence. We actually, as part of the 95% plan, we actually do have, I believe it's a 6-foot high fence that will actually mimic the one that is on the Lewis and Clark Park side. So basically that black iron fencing. We went as tall as UP would allow us to go. They actually have some concern that if you go too tall, you're potentially trapping someone from being able to get away. So basically, yeah, there is proposed to be at least fencing in the area.
I was thinking more of like, where is it? A wall, like they put along the freeway there, Portland, along 84 to block the sound.
Well, we actually, this is going way, wow, you're bringing up a lot of memories. We actually did have a sound study done early on when we did look at basically doing potentially a sound wall. And frankly, the reduction in noise that would have gotten you was so minor, it was really deemed to not be cost effective.
And I love trains, I stand out there and watch them, but they can be intimidating.
Slightly loud.
Coming down the tracks there.
Linda?
is the Union Pacific right-of-way, and does it butt right up against the post office property?
Yes.
Scott?
Yeah, I'm not sure that we know that, I mean, or unless it's new information, because I haven't been able to find the width of their easement or right-of-way for that. I mean, where we have, it's between the tracks and the post office property, it's 50 feet at Union Street. At its narrowest, behind Ernest's lot, it's 36 feet. So we, hopefully we would have enough room to maybe even plant some trees, have a nice pedestrian walkway and a fence, and still have room for a potential third track down the road within that 50 feet. But maybe I don't know that the city owns the property under the tracks, and I'm not sure, I haven't seen yet the deed or the right of way for that, if it goes all the way to the property line or not, as you have.
My answer is based on the GIS.
Oh, okay.
But again, that was the best of my recollection,
Yeah.
and that what we're finding out, the city actually does own the land under those tracks and the west of Union. Had a brief conversation with the city attorney on researching the same easement language that has been granted, and perhaps what century it was deeded to.
Okay, do we have any other discussion, any other questions? There are three choices that were sent in the packet. The first is a three-part staff recommendation, of which potentially B, which is the commitment to proceed with the next phase, might be at some concern due to wanting to look at financial information. I'm not sure that parts A or C would have much particular objection. One is just a commitment to continue with the Mill Creek plan, and the other is not to include Laughlin to Madison, which apparently has some technical issues. But I will entertain a motion either for portions of the number one staff recommendation, or take it as in total, and we can deal with taking something out in discussion. Don't everybody make a motion at one time, I'll get confused. Kurt knows I get confused.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Scott.
Move to recommend to the city council to A, not extend the First Street Riverfront Connection Project area boundary easterly from Laughlin Street to Madison Street, and to continue to pursue alignment A for the Mill Creek Greenway connection, including preparation of a letter of intent to pursue grant funding for that project.
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I think there's a lot of things in this proposal that really would normally fall under city expenses, like replacing the water mains and the street repair. And so it uses up urban renewal funds, which are for a pretty specific use on something that normally would be handled by the city if someone else was doing the project.
Any other discussion?
Which of these two staff recommendations do you recommend? Which of the two?
Sorry,
Which of the two, A or B, would be your preference?
One would
My motion. Of C, it was really more categorized as three, provide staff with direction as appropriate. It was a recommended council and a provide staff direction.
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for a reread of the motion.
I
Now
can't
he's gonna
quote
have
that.
to do it.
I can't quote his motion, I'm sorry, I'm not that fast.
Okay.
Scott, could you restate
Well,
your
because-
motion?
I'll give it another stab.
Well, just because it wasn't a verbatim thing, I
Absolutely.
wanna make sure I catch it all.
Yeah, and I think, I'm glad that we can have some discussion about it. The intent was to recommend to city council, I'll restate it in a second, but I'll just, for further discussion, was to include A, which is to basically take staff's recommendation and kind of what I gathered from it is, and to not extend, even though we have the option to, not extend the project boundary to the east.
Correct.
However, to preserve the boundary extension to the west and to recommend that to the council. And then also, just to make the motion more complicated, to also direct staff to continue to pursue alignment A. I looked at alignment B, I think it's a loser. And so we, A is our first choice. They said no. Let's try again, let's push a little harder, see if we can get some Union Pacific representatives on the ground. I think they'll see the benefit of it. And so, continue to pursue that alignment A connection, and then also pursue other sources of funding, namely recreational trail grant program through the state, and so throw in a letter of intent for that. So, any questions on that before I try it again? Okay. So
You almost had it there, but you
Yeah.
kept going.
let's move to recommend to the city council not to extend the First Street Riverfront Connection project area boundary easterly from Laughlin to Madison Street, and to direct staff to continue to pursue the alignment A with Union Pacific Railroad. Additionally, to submit a letter of intent for the recreational trail grant program through the state of Oregon.
The second holds up.
Yes, second.
Second holds up. Discussion.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I believe that this is a city council decision. We need the city council mixed into this negotiation. We inherited these 2008 bond proceeds, and we are a new board. I don't feel comfortable taking on all the responsibility. I want to partner with the city. This is mostly city project, and I think that I'm willing to move forward, but I think that we're just moving forward with negotiations and talking and seeing where we're going. We're not doing any project, we're just moving it forward. So I concur with Mr. Baker on this, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anything else? If not, we'll call for the question. Roll call vote, please.
Baker.
Aye.
Coburn is absent. Delaney.
Aye.
Frederick.
Aye.
Grossman.
Aye.
Kramer.
Aye.
Long Curtis.
Aye.
McLaughlin.
Aye.
And Miller.
Aye.
Thank you.
Good job. You should have been the chairman.
No.
It's the guy that puts the motion together. He's the most important person on the panel, that's for sure. Okay, moving on to our next item on our agenda is executive session. We will recess to executive session in accordance with ORS 192660 2E to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing party to negotiate real property transactions. We need to ask everyone other than the media. I will ask that Mayor Rich stay for this session. If there are no objections. John's will go past, but it is.